Prussia. For centuries, it was one of the most feared powers in Europe, a militaristic kingdom of iron discipline and sharp uniforms. Prussia wasn't just a country, it was a machine. It carved its way through Central Europe, unifying Germany, fighting Napoleon, and defining what it meant to be modern and efficient. Its armies were legendary, its bureaucracy ruthless. Prussia introduced compulsory education, reformed military strategy, and shaped the political landscape of the 19th century. But after World War II, that machine became a liability. Prussia was seen as the source of German aggression. So, in 1947, the Allies dissolved it. The land was divided between Poland and the Soviet Union. The name was scrubbed from maps, history books, and national memory. Today, you can still visit the ruins of Prussian castles. But the country? It's gone. Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia began as a hopeful experiment, a federation of South Slavic peoples united under one flag after the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It endured monarchy, Nazi invasion, and communist revolution. Under Josip Broz Tito, it became a socialist state independent of the Soviet Union, a rare feat. It was admired for its cultural diversity, strong identity, and strategic non-alignment during the Cold War. But after Tito's death in 1980, everything began to fall apart. Nationalism surged, economic decline set in, and in the 1990s, a series of brutal wars tore the country apart. Genocide, ethnic cleansing, and sieges plagued the region. By 2006, Yugoslavia had vanished. In its place, 7 new nations and a legacy of both unity and unimaginable suffering. The Soviet Union. The USSR was the largest country the world had ever seen, spanning 11 time zones, stretching from Eastern Europe to the Pacific. It was forged in revolution and born from the ashes of Imperial Russia. For over 70 years, it stood as a superpower, racing the US in space, stockpiling nuclear arms, and shaping global politics through proxy wars and ideological influence. Its state-controlled economy, surveillance apparatus, and rigid party system dominated life within. But by the late 1980s, cracks began to show. Economic stagnation, nationalist movements, and calls for reform overwhelmed the system. In 1991, the empire crumbled. 15 republics gained independence. The hammer and sickle was lowered. Today, the USSR exists only in memories, monuments, and the ambitions of those who wish to see its return. East Germany. Officially the German Democratic Republic, East Germany was formed in 1949 out of the Soviet-controlled zone of post-war Germany. It was a land divided by ideology, its Western counterpart basking in capitalist prosperity, while East Germans lived under a repressive socialist regime. The Berlin Wall, built in 1961, became its defining symbol. It kept citizens in and ideas out. But cracks began to form in the 1980s. Peaceful protests surged. Neighboring communist regimes fell. And in 1989, the wall was breached. Less than a year later, East Germany ceased to exist, absorbed into a reunified Germany. Czechoslovakia. Formed in 1918, after the fall of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Czechoslovakia was a model of democracy, for a time. It thrived industrially and culturally, becoming one of Europe's most modern states. But it suffered under Nazi occupation during World War II, and after the war, fell under Soviet control. The Prague Spring of 1968, a movement toward reform, was crushed by Soviet tanks. Still, the country endured. And in 1989, the Velvet Revolution peacefully ended communist rule. 4 years later, the Velvet Divorce occurred, a peaceful split into the Czech Republic and Slovakia. Austro-Hungarian Empire. This vast empire was a dual monarchy, ruled jointly by Austria and Hungary, but encompassing dozens of ethnic groups and nationalities. It was a grand, ornate bureaucracy, holding together a fragile multicultural experiment. Its cities, Vienna, Budapest, Prague, were centers of art, science, and politics. But internal tensions never truly disappeared. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914 was the spark that ignited World War I. By the war's end in 1918, the empire collapsed. Out of its ashes came Austria, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, and more. Ottoman Empire. For over 600 years, the Ottoman Empire ruled a vast territory, from North Africa to the Arabian Peninsula to the Balkans. It was a melting pot of religions, languages, and traditions. Its military might was legendary. Its sultans lived in opulent palaces, and its legal and cultural systems shaped the Islamic world. But by the 19th century, the empire was known as the sick man of Europe. Nationalist movements, military defeats, and internal corruption weakened it. World War I delivered the final blow. In 1922, the Sultanate was abolished, and from its core, the Republic of Turkey emerged. Kingdom of Hawaii. Long before it was a U.S. state, Hawaii was an independent kingdom, ruled by native monarchs who unified the islands in the 18th century. It was recognized by major powers and engaged in global trade, but American business interests grew powerful. In 1893, a coup led by U.S.-backed settlers overthrew Queen Liliuokalani. Despite protests and petitions, Hawaii was annexed by the U.S. in 1898. Today, the kingdom survives in cultural revival movements and sovereignty advocacy, but as a nation, it was lost to imperial ambition. South Vietnam. Established in 1955, South Vietnam became a Cold War battlefield. It was backed by the United States against the Communist North. The Vietnam War dragged on for 2 decades. Cities burned, jungles were bombed, millions died. And in 1975, after U.S. withdrawal, Saigon fell. South Vietnam was absorbed into the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. Its name disappeared, but its history remains vivid in memory, especially among its diaspora. Tibet. Once an independent Buddhist kingdom high in the Himalayas, Tibet had its own spiritual leaders, language, and governance. It was a place of mystery and reverence for outsiders. But in 1950, China invaded. The Dalai Lama fled into exile. The government was dismantled. Thousands of monasteries were destroyed in the decades that followed. Today, Tibet is an autonomous region of China. Its government, once independent, was dissolved decades ago. While Tibetan identity endures, its national sovereignty has not. Rhodesia. In 1965, the white minority government of southern Rhodesia unilaterally declared independence from Britain, creating Rhodesia. It was an apartheid-like state, unrecognized by most of the world. Years of guerrilla warfare and international pressure followed. In 1980, black majority rule was finally achieved. The nation was renamed Zimbabwe, United Arab Republic. In a bold move toward Arab unity, Egypt and Syria formed the United Arab Republic in 1958. It was supposed to be the beginning of a pan-Arab federation, but internal tensions quickly grew. Syria resented Egyptian dominance. In 1961, it withdrew. Egypt kept the name for several more years, but the union was dead. The UAR lasted just 3 years, a short-lived symbol of a dream that never came true. Biafra. In 1967, the southeastern region of Nigeria declared independence as Biafra, citing ethnic persecution and economic exploitation. What followed was a devastating civil war. Images of starving children shocked the world. Over 1 million died, mostly from famine. In 1970, Biafra surrendered. The region was reintegrated into Nigeria. Gran Colombia. After winning independence from Spain, Simon Bolívar forged Gran Colombia, a federation of modern-day Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, and Panama. But political rivalries and geographic divides made unity difficult. By 1831, the federation dissolved. For Bolívar, it was the ultimate heartbreak, his vision of a united Latin America undone by the very forces he tried to overcome. Republic of Texas. From 1836 to 1845, Texas was its own republic, born from a rebellion against Mexico. It had its own president, flag, and foreign policy, but financial troubles and pressure from the U.S. led it to join the Union. Its annexation sparked the Mexican-American War. Some Texans still fly the Lone Star flag in remembrance, but the republic is long gone. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for similar ones and feel free to drop suggestions for the next video in the comments.